that no doubt drives some of the people. But the specter of seeing so many people, this wasn't a protest in the sense of carrying signs or demonstrating. This was a very quiet, orderly, very almost pedestrian kind of thing to do. We're just going to eat our lunch here today. Where we believe in a certain idea. We think that idea has been challenged. We're going to silently, passively, show that we noticed. And it really, although Mike Huckabee, I guess, called for it and designated the day, I don't really think you can give him all the credit for this. I think people felt that they wanted to do this. He's not that influential.
Well, it's almost like a powder keg started to explode, because I think there have been a lot of people who've been holding back their feelings and afraid to stand up for fear of not being, as Lyle said at the beginning, politically correct, because you're afraid you're going to be colored in a much more negative way than what you're trying to get across, which is, freedom of expression.
Diego Bernal, why did we not hear, and I'm glad that we didn't, but why did we not hear anything from City Hall San Antonio like we heard from City Hall Chicago or City Hall Boston?
I mean, I think that question is asked of any city hall that didn't make a statement. First of all, I don't think that what they're proposing is legal. And, as a civil rights attorney before this, I'm a big First Amendment proponent. I don't particularly agree with what the CEO said,
right,
but certainly has a right to say it, the same way that people on the other side have a right to say what they want to say. And in some ways, that's sort of like the cornerstone of democracy, isn't it? So I don't think that you'll see City Hall wade into the waters of illegal activity because we do or don't agree with what someone said.
And I don't think
I'm sorry, but it was a very bad call on their part. I don't think that you would have.
But there were a lot of people jumping on the There were a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon. The mayor of San Francisco jumped on the bandwagon, as did some other California mayors. I mean,
in agreement or disagreement, or saying we also will enact policies that prevent.
In agreement. I mean, this until the protest showed how big and broad it was. There was a mayor. There were mayors every day jumping on this bandwagon.
I mean, I can see people coming out and saying, I support what someone's doing, or I support what they're not doing, but I don't think someone will say we're going to develop a policy that would prevent X, Y, and Z company from establishing.
And I would never expect that in this city on multiple reasons. I tend to think of San Antonio as being, as far as this issue is concerned, not the free speech issue. I'm just talking aside from the free speech issue. I'm talking about the either gay marriage or gay rights in general. I think the city is far more tolerant than some of the cities you're discussing. And in San Francisco, that's an extreme city, no matter how you paint it. This might have happened even without the gay issue. I mean, that kind of stance, politically incorrect stance. So anyway, I would not expect our city council. I've never seen that kind of activity or activism that way in this city, because I think it's a more tolerant city.
Lyle, what about that?
Well, first of all, it's not a surprise. Everybody that understands Chick-fil-A and the philosophy that they've set up, they don't open on Sundays, and it's for religious reasons.
Right.
And so when this came forward, I think a lot of folks were shocked that they made a statement like that.
Shocked that they were shocked, right?
Yeah, well, I think the reality of it is you've probably got a lot of corporate folks. You've got folks that have a similar feeling. They've never been asked to articulate their viewpoint on that, and I think that we need to tread lightly on this, because if you start dictating public policy because of perceptions from leadership at a city hall or at any level of government, it could get nasty, because you could have folks on the other end of the continuum that are a little bit more hardline, a lot stronger conservative viewpoint that maybe we're going to start looking the other direction.
Well,
it's a dicey issue.
You're one election away from a city government that would say we're going to do this to LGBT-owned businesses.
And that's
Those
what
aren't
you need to be careful about what you're doing. And I think that I'm glad that, like you said, they walked back some of their comments. But it's just unfortunate we're at a point where people can't express their views, whether you like it or not, and then to have some kind of retribution from a government agency because they don't feel like they're being politically correct. I just got a problem with that.
Is this it? I mean, is this the end of story? Does this go anywhere else now?
I think it sets up copycats. You know, Ken's in the PR business. If you want to create a firestorm and get folks into your store and you want to make them aware, then you say something controversial. Hopefully the national media will focus on you, and you're going to get a flood of people, regardless of what your position
I wonder if they
is.
could, but I mean, could you really, I don't know if you could really orchestrate this, because I have to say, I was very surprised that somebody as savvy as Rahm Emanuel would make that mistake. Tom Menino, I'm not surprised, but Rahm Emanuel should know better. And you would think that you couldn't really count on, I wouldn't think you could count on if you were Ken Slavin and you were orchestrating this, masterminding this. Ken, I don't think you could really count on saying, well, I'm going to have my executive make a value statement, and that's going to trigger this, you know, ham-handed political response, and then we're going to benefit from that.
Well, you might not be able to count on that, but it doesn't mean that certain people or certain organizations wouldn't try. Part of it is the era we live in. You state something, it seems to me that you can blink and it's all over the world now. It doesn't matter, you know, with social media and with just the speed of light, these feelings spread. When a person in my business 20 years ago, I mean, it would have been a much more involved effort if you were getting behind any kind of an issue, whether it was this one or any kind of an issue, to get the word out and to get these kinds of headlines and everything. Now all it takes is, you know, an immediate tweet, you know, or anything like that. But I don't think this is going away. I think that this is going to be used all the way through the election, this particular issue, and I think it's that people are going to build on it. I think it's going to be more and more common.
There's a danger in that, though, right? And that is
Yes.
that the danger is to assign, let's say, the actions of Rahm Emanuel and this other mayor to a party, right? That didn't happen. And so to use it throughout an election, I think, is dangerous, because
It's very dangerous, but I
certain
think
individuals
they're
can take
going to.
responsibility for their actions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that an entire party or the
No.
city council owns it.
I agree with you, but I think there are going to be a lot of these, I hate the word extremists, but I think that it defines some of these people. They won't care about that. They're going to keep, what I see in politics today is driving, relentless messaging, it to the point where you just want to turn off the radio, you want to turn off the TV. You are so sick. I'm sick and tired of that from both sides. It's like, golly, can we take a breath?
Did you notice, by the way, that on Tuesday, runoff election day, if you were a politician, at some point in your last-minute campaigning, right, you had to have that red and white bag in your hand. It was hilarious. I wonder if these guys had ever in their life had Chick-fil-A
Well,
before Tuesday.
that's such a cheap jumping-off place, but, you know, everything seems like cheap shots to me these days. I'm sorry, but it may just be the aging cynic in me.
There's very little substance now. I mean,
Yes.
One of the things I've been saying recently.
Well, it's symbolism.
Right, it's all symbolism.
I mean, you're saying 1,000 words holding that back.
But what I also think is happening is that, and I think it's because the woman I'm dating is much more conservative than I am. So we've had
Good for you.
We'll have to get into that.
Yeah. Interesting dinner conversations. But I sort of believe
At
now
Chick-fil-A.
that not at Chick-fil-A. But I believe now that people treat their parties often like religions, and their candidates like popes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no middle ground, there's no discussion, there's no whittling it down. You just pick a side and you stay there, you draw the line in the sand, and you don't move. And if you move, you pay the consequences from your constituents.
Oh yeah, well, if you move, the same vitriol is directed at you.
Right, and that's why I
it's like constant assassination attempts.
Hold
it's
these
horrible.
thoughts, because I do want to come back to this whole conversation that we're having. Not the girlfriend, but the whole conversation we're having with this gang of four. But first, on a Friday morning, 10:25 on 550 KTSA.
I was going to say voter.
550 KTSA. No, listen, I thought that, Ken backed me up on this. I thought listening to Diego Bernal and Lyle Larson, that was very interesting.
We
it
had
was
a good
genuine.
Yes, it was fiery. I
You
learned
both
I
really
learned a lot.
believe
I'm
it.
getting rid of my 50 billion. It was a slip. I apologize.
Yeah, obviously, don't take any numbers, that Diego ever. No idea what he's talking about. But no, seriously, I mean, we need more of that.
Right, and actually during the break we both agreed that if people would just do what we just did regularly, probably get a lot further.
Can I just interject one thing, though, and Ken and I were just talking about this. The one X factor in these discussions, I mean, it's very interesting what you said, Lyle, about the city charter. It's very interesting, Diego, what you're saying about what research tells us regarding kids that go to pre-K. And by the way, my daughter went to a private school pre-K before she went into public school kindergarten. I'm not arguing, it certainly made a difference. But there are other things going on in the lives of children, and a big factor is how much parents value education and how much they pick up the cudgel at home or don't pick it up. And that's not something government's ever going to be able to make people do. So if you don't care about education or you don't think it's going to be relevant to your kid's future, all the efforts on your part in the world won't make a difference.
That's right. I do think though that if you make programs easier to find, more accessible, and there is a sort of parent development component to this, that it makes a big difference. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree.
I think more work could be done convincing people that they can educate their children at home. And that's the ultimate pre-K. Is your kid around books before they ever go to school? Do they know how to read before they go to school? Right. You have more control over that than any pre-K
I think that's right.
does.
As someone who doesn't have kids and wants kids, I've had to think about that quite a bit. You're right.
And school districts have capacity in pre-K that is not being utilized because the parents are choosing not to take them for whatever reason.
All right.
And so that's the other aspect.
Yeah,
I want you both back here on this
over drinks and dinner.
very
we'll do this
soon.
again.
Yeah,
But
there
you know,
you
the
go.
first rule of entertainment, leave them wanting more.
Yeah,
Right?
there you
Okay.
go. There you go.
All right, yes. Get off stage while they're still clapping, right, Ken? No, listen, what next for Mayor Michael Bloomberg in New York City? How do you like his no more baby formula rule? I mean, he cracked down on the big sodas. Now he's urging hospitals in New York to lock up the baby formula because he believes in the efficacy and the superiority of breastfeeding, which, by the way, I think there's no question the research backs that up. But is somehow depriving people or keeping people or a mayor getting between canisters of baby formula and
He's
and
gone.
mothers?
He's
I mean,
gone beyond ridiculous. I can't
you almost
stand it.
can't satirize this anymore.
No.
You know.
Yeah, he's got a thing with food and drinks that he's just trying to hammer away and win one on.
You know, when you got a billionaire that's sitting in office, I think there's some condescension, some superiority, and I really believe he thinks that he needs to do this to protect the population from themselves.
I
And
would
it's
like to hear the
unfortunate you have
slogan.
people like
though.
that.
I would like to hear what the slogan is going to be for this particular campaign.
Hopefully-
Ken, you should get working on
Hopefully,
it.
it's not close to actually happening. I hope
Well, I
it's
just
not.
think it could lend itself to.
And
some
what about
more
the poor mothers whose children are babies are allergic to their own milk? My sister was. She was allergic to my mother.
Oh, they can still.
So
still
she
have
had
soft
to have
drinks
formula.
as long as it's not 16 ounces.
I know,
of
Jay.
Right,
sugar.
I mean, this guy is just going after
Yeah.
these sort of consumer
Yeah, Jay
products.
Leno's having a good time last week.
It's
You
just
know,
there are so many other things he should be focusing on as mayor instead of trying to change
Oh
everyone's
no, not
lifestyle
in New York.
choices.
They've got it all figured out.
It's
there.
just insane. It makes you not even want to go there anymore.
Isn't there an age where we're all kind of embarrassed by our parents? Maybe we think they're not cool, or they don't get us, or
Sure.
whatever. I mean, everybody goes through that. Maybe it's your whole life, or maybe it's just a phase. But I was noticing this Ryan Lochte, the Olympic swimmer. His mother is doing a lot of interviews,
Yeah.
and she has actually come out and told the Today Show. I guess they asked about his love life, or did he have a girlfriend? And she revealed that no, he just does one night stands. Now, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Well, she's right. That's
I
what she
mean,
said.
come on,
Mom,
Mom.
back off the sauce and
Because he
don't
doesn't have-
talk to the
because he doesn't
media.
have
Yeah, he doesn't have
He doesn't
time.
have time for a real relationship, so he's
Yeah,
I
it
don't
probably
know.
killed a number of relationships that he had going at that point. You know, not knowing that that was just a one-night stand.
That's just another example of TMI in our society today. Too much information.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised no one has attacked the Today Show. Like, why are you know, you should know better than to interview her. She's not a smooth, you know, she's not media savvy. You put her in an uncomfortable situation. Because remember years and years ago when Newt Gingrich's mother did that interview with, was it Connie Chung?
Yes, and she secretly said she's a B word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember at the
She
time.
thought it was secret. Connie led her to believe it was off the record.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but I mean, at the time there was more anger at Connie Chung, like, how could you take advantage of this poor old lady, you know? But
Well, that shows you how things have devolved. That was news back then. Now it's not so much news. I think the more fantastic or sensational, the better. I don't think the Today Show's above that at all.
And Ryan Lochte has lost the last two races he's in since that interview, so
I think there was a consequence to his performance because his mother killing his
I
loved
blame the
one.
Today Show. No, I'm just, all right.
I guess she's the ultimate stage mother.
By the way, in Italy, according to a high court decision this week, it is now illegal to insult someone's masculinity. Specifically, you cannot say or imply that a man has no,
Oh.
Mamma mia!
yeah,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
can't say
Oh,
it.
it's ridiculous.
Ravioli.
Did
Yeah,
you see
can't say
that?
it.
Did you see the city of San Antonio addressing that issue?
No.
Okay. Well,
Oh, come on,
That's
there's
good.
10 members of council, somebody would get on
That's
that.
where that
Don't
eight
ask me to find it in the charter either.
that's where
Yeah,
the
there you
8-cent
go.
tax increase could go to right there.
Yeah.
All right, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas announced this week that they are opening up next month what will be the world's largest buffet. 824 menu items. It's costing them $17 million just to put this out. What would you even call that? I mean, what do you even begin with that?
Gargantua.
Yeah.
The Gargantua buffet. That's insanity. It's
Vomitorium?
Vomitorium, yes.
You know, the whole buffet concept, and it's always interesting when you go to a buffet, whether it's Chinese food or whether it's a buffet, it seems to attract, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but it looks like it attracts large people, and they go in and we call them,
I've never noticed.
I don't
What
know.
are you talking about?
We call them the buffet busters. The people, and I got a buddy. He says I'm going to kill him today, and he's a big guy, and his whole idea is I'm going to be known as the
Yeah,
buffet
people become
buster.
like pirates.
Right. Yeah.
Like
And-
they're raiding the booty of the we're gonna
And
show
actually,
that.
we went to one Chinese establishment, and it was all you could eat. It was on Friday, and he had like 7. He went back 7 times, and finally, the proprietor of the business came back and said, "You're not welcome anymore." You know, he says you don't come here anymore because the $3.99 that you spent, you've overconsumed.
Oh, it's
That's
just
a cry for help in a way.
Well, I'm sure that maybe that'll be the next thing Mayor Bloomberg
Could be.
stops doing in New York, because you can't have
Right.
buffets.
Yeah,
Although I think something that large as a buffet is just disgusting.
Yeah.
That kind of already made me sick to my stomach.
Isn't the sort of the calculus in Vegas keep people there as long as
Right.
you possibly can?
Right.
That's what I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you have a
Right.
great
Feed
when you have a
'em up.
grazing
I was going to
opportunity,
say,
there'll be
the
some
new
more.
calculus is
Gambling.
make sure that they die while they're in Vegas.
Well, then it's
Yeah.
called graze and gambling.
Right.
It's the graze and gambling buffet.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, and also
GG.
this week, the state of Alabama became the last state in the union to lift a law against beers and wines and liquors that have offensive names. So there were actually beers called Dirty Bastard and Backwoods Bastard that could not be sold in Alabama, but now they are free to sell it there. I think that's a great, in the history of the civil rights movement.
Well,
it's a
I
great
think
moment.
it's a nice bookend to our corporate free speech.
Absolutely.
Was
discussion.
Deliverance filmed in Alabama?
No, I think it was in.
Wasn't it in Carolina?
Oh, really? Georgia.
Well,
It's
yeah,
Georgia.
I'm not
Georgia?
certain. Alabama, since A&M's going to the Southeast Conference, I'm going to have to disparage those other schools as much as
You're
I
working
can.
on that already?
Yeah,
Well,
working
Well,
on
since, well,
Alabama.
since those
Yeah.
beers
You just
were
got
banned-
some more
Yeah,
fuss
just
right
wrote,
there.
Deliverance. Can we go by and look at the films, the film set? You know.
Well, were those beers still in existence after being banned? Were they able to be
Oh, yeah,
sold in other
they're
parts
sold
of
in
the
other
country?
parts of the country,
Okay.
but it's good to know now if you get thirsty
What was
in
the name of
Alabama.
that? What's the name of that beer?
There was Dirty Bastard
Dirty Bastard.
and Backwoods Bastard.
Yeah, give me a Dirty Bastard. That just doesn't even sound right.
We'll
Give me a
save-
Lone Star.
We're
That
going to
sounds
save
right.
that tape right there for the next Lyle Larson
Yeah.
political campaign. Man named, speaking of Alabama, still in Alabama, Chance Both this week was texting a friend while driving his truck. His last text was, "I need to quit texting because I could have a car accident." Right after that, he drove his pickup truck off a cliff,
Oh, wow.
suffering a broken neck, crushed face, fractured skull, and brain injuries. He had to be brought back to life 3 times. Now he is going to devote his life to educating people about not texting while driving. But his last text message, that's crazy.
Yep.
It's unfortunate. A lot of folks have died because of texting on the roadways.
I want to play you an ad, if we can get this one ready. This is cut number 3 in there, Don, if you can tell me when you have that ready. This is a political ad that Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts is running. Now, she is also considered, like Mayor Castro, a rising star in the party. She's going to have a featured speech at the Democratic National Convention. She's running against Scott Brown in that Senate race up there. And she, of course, famously gave the "You didn't build that" speech before President Obama gave it. Now she's got a new tack. She's saying that America needs to be more like China when it comes to building infrastructure. Listen to this.